How about now? Can you hear me now? Am I being heard? Am I coming through? All right, very good. So we'll give it a couple of minutes, waiting for stragglers to come in, then we'll get started. Hello, millionaire. All right, share. I'm just looking over YouTube settings while I wait. They got rid of the ability to take a live stream and then take clips from the live stream, which is junky. But YouTube says it wasn't being used enough. I don't know why. But anyway, there's a thing to do like highlights or something. So I'm trying to see, I can do highlights on my phone, but it doesn't look like I can do it on my computer. Hello, John. Welcome. All right. Hello, Maxwell. Welcome. Yeah, it was really nice to be able to make a clip out of a live stream. Like I was doing with the morning monastery experiences, I was taking a little, like if I really liked the what you call it at the end, the thought of the day, I would take a clip out of it, and now I can't do it anymore. Kind of sad, but what are you gonna do? Hello, Bella and Gautam, Abby, welcome, and Elaine, welcome. Back when my channel was banned a couple of weeks back, I actually looked into doing streaming on Twitch. The only problem is, I mean, it's really cool. Like the options, like I could share a screen with you guys. I could do all kinds of stuff. Only problem is it doesn't save the video. Like you have to download it and then upload it to YouTube. So, I mean, worst comes to worst, if my channel did get perma-banned, that's probably what I would do. I'd use Rumble or BitChute or something. But no, Adriana, we're still yapping a little bit. Just waiting for people to come in. All right, I think we have enough people. Let's get started with the chanting. So we haven't started anything at all yet. So let's do page 105. Bhara Sutta. Oh, hello, Sierra. It's been a while. Good to see you. All right. The fire dancers. No, we have to be careful about the eternal flame. All right. So let's get started. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Savatyang tatra ko bharanchavo bhikkave desesami bharanarancha bharadhara danancha bhara nikke pannancha tang sunatta katumocha bhikkave bharo panchupadana kanda tissa vachaniyang katame pancha Rupupadana kando Vedanupadana kando Sanyupadana kando Sankarupadana kando Vijnana upadana kando Ayang vucchati bhikkave bharo Katamocha bhikkave bharaharo Puggalo tissa vachaniyang vyavang ayasma evang namo Evang goto ayang vucchati bhikkave bharaharo katamancha bhikkave bharadanang yayang tanha pono bhavika nandiraga sahagata tatra binindini sayatidang kamatanha bhavatanha vibhavatanha edang vucchati bhikkave Bharadanang Katamancha bhikkave bharanikke panang yo tassayeva tanhaya asesa virago nirodo chago patinissago mutti analio idang vucchati bhikkave bharanikka panetti idamavocha bhagava idang vatvana sugato attaparang etadavocha satta Bharahave panchakanda bharaharo cha puggalo bharadanang dukkang loke bharanikke panang sukang nikkipitva garung barang anyang barang anadiya samulang tanha mabbulya nichato parinibbutoti. All right, English. The burden. At Savatthi, there the Blessed One said this, Bhikkhus, I will teach you the burden, the carrier of the burden, the taking up of the burden, and the laying down of the burden. Listen to that. And what, Bhikkhus, is the burden? It should be said, the 5 aggregates subject to clinging. What 5? The form aggregate subject to clinging. The feeling aggregate subject to clinging. The perception aggregate subject to clinging. The volitional formations aggregate subject to clinging. The consciousness aggregate subject to clinging. This is called the burden. And what, Bhikkhus, is the carrier of the burden? It should be said, the person, this venerable one of such a name and clan. This is called the carrier of the burden. And what, Bhikkhus, is the taking up of the burden? It is the craving that leads to renewed existence, accompanied by delight and lust. Seeking delight here and there, that is, craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, craving for extermination. This is called taking up the burden. And what, Bhikkhus, is the laying down of the burden? It is the remainderless fading away and cessation of that same craving, the giving up and relinquishing of it, freedom from it, non-reliance on it. This is called the laying down of the burden. This is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Fortunate One, the teacher, further said this. The 5 aggregates are truly burdens. The burden carrier is the person. Taking up the burden is suffering in the world. Laying down the burden is blissful. Having laid down this heavy burden down, without taking up another burden, having drawn out craving with its root, one is free from hunger, fully quenched. All right. So the burden sutta is always a wonderful way to start any Dhamma, right? Because that's really, really wonderful, deep Dhamma there. Okay, friends. So let's see here. Just going to catch up on the chat. Oh, good. Adriana, you're automatically a mod. That's good. So I don't have to mod you every time, every live stream. That's good. All right. Okay, so welcome, friends, to Dhammapalooza. Another Monday night, another festival of Dhamma, 2 hours of a variety of Dhamma. We just did some chanting. Later on, we're going to do some guided meditation. And in between, it's up to you guys. So what we like to do here is have a community event. This is a community discussion. This is not just me yapping on for 2 hours, right? So I like everybody to be engaged in the chat with each other. You can engage with me, right? And we can have a wonderful session together, right? So that being said, as always, I always have a sutta or a topic as a backup, but I like to have you guys kind of mold how this is going to go, right? So if you have any topics you'd like me to discuss or the community to discuss, right? If you have any questions you'd like me to answer, right? Then you can type those in the chat now. You can also type those in the chat at any time. I'll always keep an eye out on the questions and the comments to respond to. And but until then, so sometimes it turns into a Q&A because people have lots of questions. Sometimes nobody has anything to say almost the whole Dhammapalooza, so we read suttas. Each time is a little different. And so let's see what it's going to be like today. So if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to discuss, then please put it in the chat. Otherwise, I do have a sutta. Actually, it was a sutta suggested by Moonlit last time, Digha Nikaya Sutta, and I haven't read it in years, so I don't even remember what's in it, to be honest with you. So it could be an interesting sutta, could not be. I don't know, but I figure it's worth at least trying to get some of it in. You got it, Chris. Be brave in the face of adversity. Oh, hello, Dan. Oh, welcome. Good to see some new friends. Yeah, Adriana, I found a new quote that I really like, actually. So it was originally it's on the internet. We know how it quotes on the internet. Abraham Lincoln tells us that we should never trust quotes on the internet, right? But so I found this quote as attributed to Winston Churchill, but actually it was attributed to a Brit before him, and it's a really cool quote. Let me see if I can remember, but it goes along perfectly with this. How I say, and how Ajahn Chah says, everything is teaching us. Everything's an opportunity for a practice, right? Now let me see if I can find this quote here. Here we go. So the quote goes like this. A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees an opportunity in every difficulty, right? Seeing the opportunity in every difficulty. What? The opportunity for practice, for investigation, for Dhamma. It's a good quote. So be an optimist. That's how it should be, right? If you're an optimist, then no matter what happens to you, you can investigate and benefit from it. Oh, we got some, let's see here. Adriana, was that just a comment or? Oh, okay. No, there you go. Okay. I see you're typing more. Oh, geez, John, that's a tough question, huh? John, hey, some folks have a hard time with staying awake in meditation due to problems that are neurological. Any advice for people with difficult fatigue issues? Asking for a friend. So, this is one of those things where, let's think about, so is there first of all, I would say, is there some kind of change in diet, some kind of medication, some way to alleviate this issue? Right? That's the first thing, right? We find out medically, hey, can I do something about this issue? Right? And if that's not the case, well, then you have a feature of your body and mind, right? This is a feature, right? It's not going away. So you have to work with it, right? So you could try to really use it as investigation, really use it as an object of meditation, and try to observe and investigate it and really know it and see if you can overcome it. Or B, what I would suggest, somebody like that, they can do something like walking meditation, standing meditation, right? I mean, the Buddha tells us to practice in all of our postures: walking, standing, sitting, lying down, right? So there's not a posture that we can't practice in, right? And some people, maybe even some people, have like severe back issues and they can't sit cross-legged on the floor, right? So they have to lie down or they have to sit in a chair or whatever, right? So people have different things that they have to work with, right, in their mind and their body. And figuring out skillful ways to work with that, that's part of the practice, right? That's definitely part of developing your practice, developing your wisdom, developing your insight, right? You can sit down, try to work with it, try to investigate it, and when it gets too bad, get up and do walking meditation, right? Walking meditation. If you're falling asleep, what do they call it? Narcoleptic. If you're narcoleptic and you're falling asleep on walking meditation, then it gets a little dangerous. then maybe standing is best. But you work with it, you figure it out. You try all the options, try all the things that you can do to work with it. All right, Adriana's here. While the past few weeks have been hectic, remembering your advice has inspired me, reinvigorated my practice. Very good. Keep up the good. When you have momentum, right, you'll see this in your path, in your practice. When you have momentum, when you have zeal and momentum and energy to practice, then practice. Don't waste time, right? Because if you've practiced long enough, you know that's not going to be there forever. That's going away, right? So what did they call it? Strike while the fire is hot or something. That's while you got the zeal, while you have the energy, practice well, right? Make the most of that opportunity, make the most of that time, right? Because then all things, this too shall pass. Everything is anicca. So after this period, you're going to go down, right? You're gonna not have as much zeal, right? You're going to not have as much energy, and it's going to be harder. You should still practice then too, but chances are you're not going to practice as zealously as when you had the energy and the zeal to do it. So don't let this opportunity go to waste. Practice well. Sierra says, Bhante, what is the benefit of learning Pali? I've been thinking about starting to learn some, but my mind keeps saying, why should I learn Pali? Use your time to just practice instead. This is a good question. Now, I will tell you my experience as somebody who practiced in lay life and who was kind of moving towards becoming a monk. When I tried to practice and learn Pali in lay life, it just didn't work out. I just didn't have the time, didn't feel the need, didn't have this, it didn't really, I kind of liked it. I thought, it's interesting learning these Pali words, but it didn't really connect with me, right? And even as a monk, there's sometimes there's like, oh God, do I have to study these declensions again? Oh, Pali, right? But I remember monks told me back before I became a monk, they said, if you really want to know what the Buddha is talking about, know the Pali. right? And I agree with them 100%. Just from my limited, I'm certainly no Pali scholar. I have a long way to go before I'm like fluent in Pali and, I can, if I read just like, if I just had a sutta and there's just walls of Pali, I might understand about 50%, right? There's a lot of words in Pali I still don't know. But this is what me as a monk, it's part of my job, right? To keep the teachings alive, right? So as I love learning Pali, and I try to do it a little bit each day, and I try to, now I'm reading the suttas with the English and the Pali, where now that thankfully Bhante Sujata is able to do it, right? So anyway, I'm going off on a little tangent. What I would say is this. If you don't really want to kind of learn Pali, that's perfectly fine. No problems. If you have a desire to do it, that's cool as well, right? But what you should understand, use the DPR, use the digital Pali reader, right? It's easy. It's a website now. Anybody can do it, right? And study the specific Pali words, right? Understand, what does Sankara really mean? And in what context? What does dukkha really mean? Right? Know these big, important Pali words, right? Because if you're just going by somebody's translation, you won't get the full context. Right? I'll give an example of anicca, right? Impermanence. Impermanence is like I don't even like that word. It's so boring. It's so overused. Every every new age hippie is using impermanence now. It's like it's totally lost its Buddhist context, right? And I remember years ago looking up the definition for anicca, and I saw these other contexts, and that actually caused me to have an insight. Just seeing these other contexts, right? And maybe, Sierra, you probably haven't been along long enough for me to talk about it, but I remember, so anicca, right? Nicca means permanent, stable, dependable. Anicca means impermanent, unstable, undependable, right? And when I read that unstable, undependable, like something clicked in my mind. And I was like, oh my God, that's right. The irony of this is that when you go for refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, you go for refuge to the fact that there's no refuge, right? There is nothing. I had this vision in my mind, right? Where I was like adrift on an ocean, like a shipwreck, right? And there's all kinds of flotsam, all kinds of floating wood. And I was trying to push myself up to get out of the water, and it would break and I would fall back down, right? And so I just kept trying to push myself up, and it would break and I would fall back down. And then I realized I just got to let go, right? And so this is what we take things to be stable and dependable, right? Our body, our car, our spouse, significant other, whatever. We take all of these things to be stable and dependable, but then something happens. You get sick, your car breaks down, your spouse leaves you, right? And you're just, what the hell? I thought I was on firm ground. Now it's like an earthquake happened. What happened, right? It's because you thought nicca, but it's anicca, right? Nothing, anything that you grasp in this existence and you say, this is stable, this is dependable, it's going to break up right into your hands. It's going to slip right through your fingers. It's like trying to pick up water in your hand and hold it, right? What's happening? The water's just going to come out, right? So understand, just looking up and understanding this one Pali word instantly, because of my previous practice and, insight and all that kind of stuff, just changed how I viewed so many things. It gave me a deeper understanding of what the Buddha is talking about when he said anicca. right? Not impermanent. I mean, yes, impermanence, but you hear the word and it's so watered down and it's so overdone that it loses its meaning. But when somebody comes up to you and says, name me one thing that's stable and dependable in existence. And you might listen, well, what about this? What about this? What about... No, none of it is, right? Nothing is. So something might be around for millions or billions of years, but eventually it goes away. It changes, right? So this is the importance. This is what I do suggest is looking up and understanding the Pali words for the big Buddhist concepts. At minimum, if you are somebody who uses the early Buddhist texts as a framework, right? If you're like on our Discord, right? At minimum, that's what I would say, at the very least. And one of the things that I could say is look up, it's available free on PDF. It's called, it's Bhante Analayo, Buddhist Thought Worlds of Early Buddhism, something like that. And so it's just 2 books where all it is in those books is him explaining in detail what the major Pali words mean. And it's also invaluable reference. So look at those. You'll find that you can find the PDF online. I have the PDFs. So worst comes to worst, just ask me for them and I can send them to you. But anyway, so I kind of went on a long tangent, but that's my answer to that. Adriana, you can Google that quote and find it. I can send you the picture that again, it's falsely attributed to Winston Churchill, right? Which means it's just like everything else. How many things are the Buddha says this? Nah, the Buddha says this. FakeBuddhaQuotes.com, right? We know this, right? But it's still an amazing quote, and it is something that somebody said. A Brit said it about 40 years before Churchill, something like that. All right. Oh, Elaine had a screen freeze. All right. So John says friend has MS. Yeah, if your friend has MS, then again, he has to work with it, right? He's going to have to, that's something to investigate, something to understand, something to work with. And so even walking meditation might be tough, right? Depending, I mean, I've had coworkers who have MS and they can get around decently enough depending on their level, right? Depending on where they are in the MS. But as long as he can get around, if he can still walk or she can still walk, then walking meditation, that's fine. Dan says, any books on Buddhism you'd recommend? Dan, depends what are you looking for, right? General Buddhism, Theravada, like there's a lot of books out there that I could possibly recommend, but I think I'd need a little bit more specifics. Am I still live? Everything good? Elaine was the only one who had the problem? All good? I thought we got Elaine into the Discord. At least we gave her the email. Okay, John's saying all good. Very good. So Chris is saying, Dear Bhante, what advice do you have for focusing more on experiential learning along the path? I feel at this point I've heard and read most of the suttas. Really? Have you really read 5,000 pages? No, I'm just kidding. I need to find ways to put them into practice. Well, see, this is the thing. This is the important thing. You have to have the understanding, the mindset of study and practice, right? The suttas are a framework for your experience. Right? You can read in Digha Nikaya number 1, all-encompassing net of views. The Buddha tells us that people have, people get into deep states, they get into deep jhanas and the arupa attainments and stuff like that, and they see, oh, look, there's this person, and they were really bad in life, but then they were born in the heaven realm, or they were really good in life, and then they were born in the hell realm, right? And they say, well, then your actions must not matter, right? And so the Buddha says is, they didn't see the whole story, right? So, but the Buddha is telling us is that there's lots of when you have your experience, you can go all kinds of wacky ways about it. You can go off on all kinds of bad tangents that are not going to help you at all, right? So when you're practicing, when you're meditating, if you have your framework as the suttas, the suttas become the framework for your experience, right? They become a guide of what you're experiencing and how to experience those things, right? So you should, the Buddha says in a sutta, right? There are 4 kinds of people. One person studies but doesn't practice. Another person practices but doesn't study. Another person does neither. That's kind of useless, isn't it? And another person does both. Right? And the Buddha says the person who does both is the one I praise. Why? Because the suttas are the framework for your experience. If you have a framework but no experience, it's just knowledge. It's just words in your mind. Oh, I know about the 4th jhana. You don't know about the 4th jhana. You never experienced it yet, right? But then you get into jhana and you say, oh yeah, that's the Buddha says X, Y, Z, right? I understand where I am and what I'm doing now, right? So that's the important thing, right? Study and practice, right? And sometimes you will feel, I need to practice more. And that's perfectly fine, right? That's part of understanding your path, is sometimes I need to practice more, right? When I got on the doorstep of jhana all those years ago, right? And I wasn't worrying about jhana. I wasn't studying jhana because I thought, maybe in 30 years, maybe I'll worry about jhana, right? But I blindly stumbled my way close, and I was like, oh, okay. Now I think I need to learn more about jhana, right? Because I was not focusing on it. I was just practicing, but I didn't have the framework to help me go further than I did, right? So if you feel the need to practice and to study less, no problem. But what I do suggest is if you want to read less books, fine. I don't read from this ajahn or that ajahn or this whatever, whatever. Just read a sutta. Read like one sutta every day or a couple suttas a week, right? You don't need to be reading about this ajahn says that, this Bhante says this Bhante. After a time, good, done. Like, I'll be honest with you, and this goes to what Dan was saying. I never read a lot of Buddhist books. I really haven't. I've read maybe 15, maybe. Mostly I've read the suttas, right? So the suttas is something you could always read, even if it's just a little bit, right? Because it's good, because the suttas help you with your insight. But you need to practice too. Study and practice, study and practice. Sometimes you feel like you need to practice more, then practice more. Sometimes you need to study, then study, right? You know your own path. If you've been wisely investigating and understanding the path, then you know what you need on the path. All right, reading the chat. Maxwell says, I find the undependable aspect really interesting. You can't count on what is anicca. Yeah, you can't count. There's nothing that you can count on. Nothing. Elaine is saying, okay, power surges, heat wave. Yeah, it was quite hot. I did, I went for my walk today in 90-degree weather, and I had my full, my robe was all over, my hat and everything. And I'm sure people were driving by looking at me like, this guy is going to pass out from exhaustion. But I did pretty good, actually. Not that bad. There's a reason why in deserts and hot places, you see the people wearing stuff all over their body. Where in America, it's like, oh, it's hot. Let me expose all my skin to the sun. And then you get sun cancer. Yeah, or whatever. I'm going to go with the people who've been living in hot places for thousands of years. All right. Yeah, we should get Elaine and her daughter. If the daughter Abby wants to come on, you should both come on. That'll be good. Have to send an email to that, Elaine, and then we'll get you on. Oh, hello, Jen. There's 5,000 what? Oh, yeah. Yeah, the early text is about 5,000 pages, Chris. Start reading. Took me about, 3 or 4 years to finish them all. And I started when I was a layperson. I started before I went to Bhavana, and I ended 3 years ago, maybe. Okay, Adriana said the email. Very good. Hello, Jen. Let's see here. Oh, hello, Dustin. Goodbye, Dustin. Did I even see Dustin arrive? Hello, goodbye. All right. Hello, Douse. So I don't see a response from Dan about clarifying the book. And the chat has gone quiet. Maybe this is where we can do some reading. Well, the Moonlit's not here. Moonlit is not here to experience the sutta that we wanted us to read. Actually, you know what though? Let's do Sona first. It's a smaller one. You regulars already know this sutta quite well, I'm sure. But there's some newbies that don't. So we'll go over this. About Sona. I have heard that on one occasion the Blessed One was staying near Rajagaha on Vulture Peak Mountain. And on that occasion, Venerable Sona was staying near Rajagaha in the cool wood. Then, as Venerable Sona was meditating in seclusion, after doing walking meditation until the skin of his soles was split and bleeding. Now there's a person dedicated to walking meditation. It's my kind of guy. I like it. Ajahn Chah says to walk until you dig holes into the ground, like until you dig the walking path deep into the ground. Walk, right? So it's that same ethos. This trainer, so he's working hard. He's practicing hard. This train of thought arose in his awareness. Of the Blessed One's disciples who have aroused their persistence, I am one, but my mind is not released from the fermentations through lack of clinging sustenance. Now, my family has enough wealth that it would be possible to enjoy wealth and make merit. What if I were to disavow the training, return to the lower life, enjoy wealth, and make merit? So he's practicing really hard. And now he's like, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm kind of killing myself. Why don't I just go enjoy being a layperson again? Right? Then the Blessed One, as soon as he perceived with his awareness the train of thought in Venerable Sona's awareness, as a strong man might stretch out his bent arm or bend his outstretched arm, disappeared from Vulture Peak Mountain, appeared in the cool wood right in front of Venerable Sona, and sat down on a prepared seat. Venerable Sona, after bowing down to the Blessed One, sat to one side. As he was sitting there, the Blessed One said to him, just now, as you were meditating in seclusion, didn't this train of thought appear in your awareness? Of the Blessed One's disciples who have aroused their persistence, I am one, but my mind is not released from the fermentations. What if I were to disavow the training, return to the lower life, and enjoy making merit? Yes, Lord. Now, what do you think, Sona? Before, when you were a house dweller, were you skilled at playing the vina? Vina. Now, vina is an ancient Indian instrument. It's kind of like a cross between a harp and a lute. You can actually go on YouTube. I've actually, like 4 years ago, I started looking up on YouTube. You can look up the vina, right? You can look up how it plays and all kinds of stuff. So this is an instrument that is still around today. You can find it on YouTube. Yes, Lord. And what do you think? Were the strings of your vina, when the strings of your vina were too taut, was your vina in tune and playable? No, Lord. So too tight. If you're a guitar player like me, it's too tight. It's you can't really get much sound out of it. And also, if it snaps, you can lose an eye. It's dangerous when a guitar string, when a string is too tight and it snaps. Not a good thing. And what do you think? When the strings of your vina were too loose, was your vina in tune and playable? No, Lord. And what do you think? When the strings of your vina were neither too taut nor too loose, but tuned to be right on pitch, was your vina in tune and playable? Yes, Lord. In the same way, Sona, over-aroused persistence leads to restlessness. So you're trying too hard. You're overdoing it. Your mind becomes restless, and agitated, right? Like the string snapping, right? Overly slack persistence leads to laziness. You're not really working that hard. And you're just kind of, I don't feel like doing this today. Why don't I just go watch some Netflix instead or something like that, right? Thus, you should determine the right pitch for your persistence. Attune the pitch of the 5 faculties to that, and there pick up your theme. Right? This is very important. This is very important, wise advice to practitioners. Right? This is why I always use this sutta. And this is In my introduction to meditation retreats that I used to do at Bhavana, I always use this sutta, right? Mostly towards the end, it's kind of like final advice. But this is important, right? You understand when you've pushed too hard, and you understand when you're not pushing hard enough, right? You're trying to find this kind of middle, persistent, consistent effort, right? Not too hard, not too soft, right in the middle. Just like your strings are tuned just right and on pitch. Why? Because this is a marathon, not a race. Right? You're not going to race, right? It's the same thing that you're not going to rabbit your way to awakening. You got to turtle your way to awakening. Right? Slow and steady wins the race. Right? Finding your right path, your right pitch, your right balance, and you stick to that balance as much as possible, because that's where you're going to have the most endurance to keep going. Right? You're not going to overdo yourself. Right? You're not going to be lazy and not put enough energy and effort in, because then you're just going to fall right off the path. Right? So you have to find that pitch, find that balance. Right? And as you practice more, over years of practice, you'll do stupid things like push your body too hard. Like I did, where I had to, I pushed my body so hard that I wrecked my hips for a week or two. Like I couldn't sit down and meditate for a week because I just did it too hard. Right. And I was like, well, okay, well, that was too far. Right. Let's have a balance there. Right. So you understand it through going through it. When you're going too hard and when you're going too soft. Right? When you need to get the inner drill instructor go, come on, get off your butt. We got to meditate. We got to walk and meditate, right? And then when you have, like the inner drill instructor pushes you a little too far. Then you got to break out like the inner, I don't know, the yoga instructor's like, honor your body's limitations. Let's take it a little slow and what. Whatever you use in your mind. But there's that balance, right? When you have to push harder and when you have to take it slower, then right? This is something that you understand over time. So just in case, am I still good? Because I haven't seen anything in the chat. And when I don't see anything in the chat, either people are listening or something went wrong with the internet. So I just want to see somebody say hello in the chat so I know we're good. And while we're doing that, we'll continue. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Adriana. Yes, Lord. Venerable Sona answered the Blessed One. Then, having given this exhortation, the Venerable Sona, the Blessed One, as a strong man, might stretch out his bent arm or bend his outstretched arm, disappeared from the cool wood and appeared in Vulture Peak. So after that, Venerable Sona determined the right pitch for his persistence, attuned the pitch to the 5 faculties, and there picked up his theme. Dwelling alone, secluded, heedful, ardent, and resolute, he in no long time reached and remained the supreme goal of the holy life, for which the clansmen rightly go forth from home into homelessness, knowing and realizing it for himself in the here and now. He knew birth is ended. The holy life has been fulfilled. The task is done. There is nothing further for the sake of this world. And then Venerable Sona became another of the Arahants. Right? This is the victory cry of the Arahants. Right? Going back to the Pali thing, if there's a line that really speaks to you, memorize it in English and Pali. Birth is ended. Kina jati. The holy life is fulfilled. Vusatang brahmacharyang. The task is done. Katang karaniyang. There is nothing further for the sake of this world. Niparang nitatayati bhajanati. I love it. It's one of my most profound and beautiful things in all of the suttas is this victory cry of the Arahant. I love it so much. This is one of the first things I learned in Pali. Because it's not that bad. Or hello, Dennis. All right. Okay. Then, on attainment of arahantship, this thought occurred to Venerable Sona. What if I were to go to the Blessed One and on arrival to declare gnosis in his presence? So he then went to the Blessed One and on arrival, having bowed down to him, sat to one side. As he was sitting there, he said to the Blessed One, when a monk is an arahant, his fermentations ended, who has reached fulfillment, done the task, laid down the burden, attained the true goal, totally destroyed the fetter of becoming, and is released through rite of gnosis. He is dedicated to 6 things: renunciation, seclusion, non-afflictiveness, the ending of craving, the ending of clinging and sustenance, and non-deludedness. Now it may occur to a certain venerable one to think, perhaps it is entirely dependent on conviction that this venerable one is dedicated to renunciation. But it should not be seen in this way. The monk whose fermentations are ended, having fulfilled the holy life, does not see in himself anything further to do, or anything further to add to what he has done. It is because of the ending of passion, because of his being free from passion, that he is dedicated to renunciation. It is because of the ending of aversion, because of his being free from aversion, that he is dedicated to renunciation. It is because of the ending of delusion, because of his being free from delusion, that he is dedicated to renunciation. Now, here's a good line, actually. Gnosis means, essentially here, gnosis, in Buddhism, when somebody uses the term gnosis, means becoming awakened. But this is a good line here, right? Dedicated to renunciation. This is why you'll see where the few times, like we saw one yesterday on Sutta Monday, the few times where a lay person becomes awakened in the suttas. It's a very rare thing, but it does happen. And the few times, they're usually young, unattached, and when they become awakened, they pretty much instantly just decide, well, nothing left for me in lay life. I'm just going to become a monastic, right? So the Buddha is explaining here, right? This is explaining here, when they've reached the goal, they're dedicated to renunciation, right? They're dedicated. So why am I doing this? I'm just going to, go and become a monk and live secluded. Right? This is why I'm very hesitant when somebody says, oh, they were awakened and they lived at home. I mean, suppose it's possible, maybe, but I doubt it. I highly doubt it. But you do hear that every once in a while. I think it would obviously make the most sense that person who's awakened, who finished the job, would be like, yeah, I think I'm just going to chill as a monk, maybe teach some Dhamma. You're like, what am I going to go to work and have support a family? No, why would I do that? That's so silly, right? It makes a lot more sense that you see in the early text where when somebody becomes awakened as a layperson, they're basically now, there's this kind of like commentarial later thing that comes like, they must become a monastic within 7 days or else their head explodes. That's that you don't see that in the early text, but that's a common thing you'll hear around Buddhist circles. That's wacky. That has no basis in reality whatsoever. It's just as simply like they don't want to do it. Why would I bother with that anymore? I'm going to just chill. All right. So I did see a question and I'm going to answer that, but I just wanted to finish this. Now, it may occur to a certain venerable one to think, perhaps it is because of he desires gain, honor, and fame that this venerable is dedicated to seclusion. Perhaps it is because he falls back on attachment to precepts and practices as being essential that he is dedicated to non-afflictiveness. But it should not be seen in that way. The monk whose fermentations are ended, having fulfilled the holy life, does not see in himself anything further to do, or anything further to add to what he has done. It is because of the ending of passion, because of his being free of passion, that he is dedicated to non-afflictiveness. It is because of the ending of aversion, because he is free of aversion, that he is dedicated to non-afflictiveness. It is because of the ending of delusion, because of his being free of delusion, that he is dedicated to non-afflictiveness. It is because of the ending of passion, because of his being free from passion, because of the ending of aversion, because of his being free from aversion, because of the ending of delusion, because of his being free of delusion, that he is dedicated to the ending of craving, the ending of clinging and sustenance, to non-deludedness. Even if powerful forms cognized by the eye come into visual range of a monk whose mind is thus freed, his mind is neither overpowered nor even engaged. Being still, having reached imperturbability, he focuses on the mind. Imperturbability, right? When this word is used in the suttas, it's used usually in older translations, but what this means is that the mind, so what Buddha is saying here, this monk has something very beautiful, something attractive, something delightful comes into the mind of this awakened being, and it doesn't flutter. It's not like, oh, hey, oh, no, I shouldn't, no, none of that. It's imperturbable. It's just completely equanimous and chill, right? So this is what this means, imperturbable. The mind remains steady, regardless of what kind of sensuality the awakened being experiences. The mind remains steady. He focuses on their passing away. And even if powerful sounds, aromas, flavors, tactile sensations, even if powerful ideas cognizable by the intellect come into the mental range of a monk whose mind is thus rightly released, his mind is neither overpowered nor engaged. Being still, having reached imperturbability, he focuses on their passing away. Just as if there were a mountain of rock, without cracks, without fissures, one solid mass, and then from the east there were to come a powerful storm of wind and rain. The mountain would neither shiver nor quiver nor shake. And then from the west, the north, the south, there would come a powerful storm of wind and rain. The mountain would neither shiver nor quiver nor shake. In the same way, even if powerful forms cognizable by the eye come into visual range of the monk whose mind is thus released, his mind is neither overpowered or shaken, being still, having reached imperturbability, and the same thing with all the others. And then here we'll finish it out here with little verses. When one's awareness is dedicated to renunciation, seclusion, non-afflictiveness, and the ending of clinging, the ending of craving and non-deludedness, seeing the arising of sense media, the mind is rightly released. For that monk, rightly released, his heart is at peace. There's nothing to be done, nothing to add to what's done. As a single massive rock isn't moved by the wind, even so all forms, flavors, sounds, aromas, contact ideas, desirable or not, have no effect on one who is such. The mind, still totally released, focuses on their passing away. All right, so let me go back in the chat since we finished. So let me get a drink. My throat's getting a little parched. All right. Maxwell has a question. Can you appreciate impermanent anicca things without craving them? Or is it nigh impossible for the mind to do? I would say it's nearly impossible for somebody who's not awakened. because there's always this level, even if it's a very subtle level of attachment, it's still there. I mean, ask yourself, like, okay, your spouse or your parent dies. Can you be like, Nietzsche? If you can, then maybe you're there. Maybe the job is almost done for you. But yeah, I mean, you can see that in your own mind, right? Can you? Now, what you can do is, when you really understand that something is impermanent, you don't take it for granted. You have gratitude for it, right? You don't take it for granted. We take it for granted that we can flip on a switch and electricity comes on, right? Because we're just so used to it. And if you go live in, like I did in a Kuti for a couple of years, where your light was an oil lamp, you didn't just flick it on. You're like, okay, I got to make sure this oil lamp works and such and all these things, right? You kind of, it's like, oh, wow, this is amazing. You can flip a switch and light comes on. This is, you take so much for granted, but until the power goes out, right? Maybe you were part of, if you were on the East Coast, a bunch of years ago, 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, when Sandy hit, maybe you didn't have any power for 3, 4, 5, 6 days, right? Then you realize, oh, wait, all this stuff is impermanent. This thing called civilization, man, an asteroid could come or something could happen and we're done, right? We take it all for granted, right? We take this, and especially when us in they would used to call the first world, right? Where we have this whole system that kind of keeps us, that protects us from lots of the uncertainties and dangers of the world that our ancestors didn't have, right? Our ancestors thousands of years ago, 100,000 years ago, surviving out in nature, right? They didn't have all these security that we have, right? But even that security is just like a tent, right? If you ever been out, if you ever camped out, right? If a bear wanted you, they could just drag the whole damn tent. You're not protected from anything in the tent. It's only out of sight, out of mind. Well, you're protected from bugs, maybe. That's about it. But like if a creature wanted you, no tent's going to protect you from that big creature. It ain't going to happen, right? So, we have this kind of false sense of security when really there isn't any. Right? You see this with the whole thing with COVID, right? But that we have this false sense of security. How many times, thousands of times throughout human history, has there been plagues and viruses and such, and millions of people die? Would that make what happened with this COVID to be nothing, right? Like the bubonic plague, something like 100 million people, like 2/3 of Europe done, just gone, right? This is nature. This is impermanence, right? This is. So you can appreciate things because of impermanence, right? But if you're kind of attached to something, it's hard to appreciate it because of impermanence, right? You suffer because of impermanence when you're attached to something. Adriana, that's perfectly said. So pretty much life is just one big tent that will eventually be dragged away by a bear. Yes, exactly. Perfect. Well, actually, that's one of my old articles, on my website from when I used to have a Tumblr website, the tent analogy. This comes from when I was like doing my practicing in the woods, where I was learning to gradually sleep in the woods without a tent, without firearms, without fire, these kind of things, right? And I realized, what? There's no. Yeah, I originally had a Tumblr. That was my very. Technically, it's still there. Jayantha.tumblr.com. But I don't use it. I think I post to it though when stuff that comes that I post on my main website also, which is a WordPress, goes to the Tumblr as well. But yeah, but that's the tent analogy. All right. Let me just check here because Sierra had a question. Hopefully Sierra is still around. What practice do you recommend as we are falling asleep? Metta mindfulness. This is a double-edged sword, honestly, because using any kind of meditation technique to go to sleep, you're in danger of training your mind that this equals sleep, right? And it's not something I suggest doing. At least being careful. What I would suggest is like how, like if you're raised Catholic or whatever, you do your prayers before bed, right at the bed. Lay me down to sleep, pray the Lord my soul to keep, all that stuff, right? So maybe right before you get into bed, if you're tired, right, you practice metta, right? Because the Buddha says if you practice metta, then you go to sleep peacefully, you have no evil dreams, and you wake up peacefully. So maybe right before you get into bed, don't do it while you're in bed, right? And even like Steve Walker, who's this doctor, who's amazing. I love his stuff. He's all about sleep. He's a sleep guy, and he says, unless you're tired, don't get into bed, because don't train your mind to be like, I'm just gonna rustle around in bed for 3 hours trying to sleep. No, bed equals sleep, right? So it's this. So before you get into bed, maybe metta, right? Maybe some mindfulness of breathing. And then you get into bed when you're tired and you go to sleep, right? And now if you're restless, maybe, then don't get into bed. Maybe go in a chair or a couch or something, and then close your eyes and practice mindfulness, satipatthana. Practice because that's a way that calms your mind, right? Satipatthana, practicing 4 foundations of mindfulness, goes against the hindrances, so your mind can come nice and calm, right? And then when you're ready, go to bed. Oh, Gray, our friend from New Zealand. It's been a while, Gray. Good to see you. Our Kiwi friend. All right. So I guess that's what I would say. Don't try to do it to sleep, so that you avoid the correlation. Oh, Dennis. So this is okay. So I know this is Dennis from the old days of Bhavana. No, Panyaratana disrobed. Of all the monks that were ordained since I moved to Bhavana, I'm the only one left. That's the way it goes. Let's see. What's a Buddhist meme? What did Max say that's a Buddhist meme? Ah, yeah. So Max, I'm from the coast of New Jersey. So when Sandy hit all those years ago, I got to see for the first time in real life what I only saw like um, with like down in Louisiana when there would be floods and like people would be riding boats down like highways. I got to actually see that in reality. I got to see this highway that I had driven on my whole life become a place where boats were floating down. I was like, holy moly, that's reality. That exists. Right? It was pretty interesting. Douse, well, Douse says, I come home, my house is burnt down, and I'd be like, oh well. I don't know. I'll have to see that. Well, if that ever happens, we'll have to see if that's the actual reality. All right. Okay. Yeah, better sleep. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've never, ever in my life had trouble sleeping. I've never had like insomnia or anything like that. Um, so, you know, I can't really speak from experience in that regard. But I like that Matthew Walker and his stuff about sleeping. His book is called Why We Sleep. I actually have it. I haven't read it yet, though. I've watched interviews with him. All right. Yeah. Dennis is an old friend from a long time ago. Lives somewhat near Bhavna, if I remember correctly. Also, one of the original people on the Discord back in the day. All right. Good night, Elaine. So we've come to the end of our sutta. We've come to the end of questions. It's 9:09. Actually, yeah, 9:12. Actually, that clock is wrong. I think it's time to do our guided meditation. So let's do. Okay, so I'm going to say in about. So we'll get started and we'll end about 45, which leaves us. Yeah. Yep, 45. That'll leave us 15 minutes to do maybe some Samyutta Nikaya verses readings, and then that's it. All right, Douse, have a good night. Douse probably doesn't have trouble sleeping either because, like me, or like how I used to be, he stays up till 3 o'clock in the morning. If you stay up really late, it's easier to go to sleep. Good night, Douse. Okay. Okay, friends. Sit down in whatever position is comfortable for you. We'll start by scanning through our body to bring our awareness from the external to the internal, and to make sure that our body's set up in a stable and comfortable position. So bring your awareness to your feet. To bring your awareness means that you try to become aware of whatever sensations in that part of your body. Like the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor, the cushion, against the rest other parts of your body, etc. You want to train your mind to focus in such a way so that you can notice when your posture is out of balance or when there's a small pain or discomfort that will become something much greater later on. In this phase where we scan through the body, this is the time to move around, adjust your posture. So once we start mindfulness of breathing, we want to have little to no movement at all. The less movement, the better. Bring your awareness up through your ankles and to your calves. If you're having trouble connecting with some kind of sensation, you can ask yourself, what do I see? What do I feel? And then a sensation might present itself to your awareness. Bring your awareness up through your knees and your thighs. To your pelvis, hips, and buttocks. If you're sitting on a cushion, you want to make sure that your buttocks, your sits bones, are evenly distributed and balanced. The hips and pelvis are one of the most important aspects and areas of good posture. The position of the pelvis determines the position of the spine, can be a cause for your upper body to lean and slouch. It's important to set up the lower body as a firm foundation for a stable upper body, just like the foundation of a house. When you're done setting up your lower body, bring your awareness up through your abs and your chest. Check to see that the spine is resting comfortably in its neutral position, not leaning or slouching here and there. Bring your awareness to your shoulders. Make sure they're hanging low, not scrunched up and tight, just loose. And then bring your awareness down through your elbows and your hands. Checking to make sure they're in a comfortable position that supports your posture. The position of your elbows and hands can lead to imbalances. Having the spine lean or slouch here or there. The more you work on getting a stable and comfortable posture, the easier and longer your meditation sits will be. At least from the perspective of the body. And finally, bring your awareness up to the head. Check to see that the chin is parallel to the ground, that the head is not leaning or slouching here or there. And when you're ready, let your body go and take 3 deep breaths. And then let the breath go. From here on in, we do not wish to manipulate or control the breath in any way. This body has been breathing from the second you were born and will continue to do so to the moment you die. It doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply abide with the breath, to investigate it, to know it deeply. You may find most prominent the feeling, the sensations of the air going in and out of the nostrils. If so, you can place your awareness there. Or if you have trouble with that, you may find most prominent the rise and fall of the chest. If so, you can bring your awareness there. Or you can simply abide with the basic awareness of this body breathing in and breathing out. Friends, we come to our meditation with many responsibilities, worries, and burdens. Family and friends, work and school, past and future. Many things that will seek to come to our mind as we follow the breath. For the time of this meditation, we practice letting go, laying down our burdens. Just as the mighty Atlas holds the world on his shoulders, so too do we each hold our world on our shoulders, a heavy burden. For the time of this meditation, lay your world down and follow the breath. There'll be plenty of time to pick it up later. As you're following your breath, your mind will become distracted. It will either get bored or fly away to the other side of the world or the galaxy, to the past or the future, or an external sound or some activity will distract you. At this point, we should understand that we did not do anything wrong or fail or make a mistake. This is simply the mind showing you how it works, showing you its craving. This is what the mind does. So whenever you get distracted away, first, acknowledge that you have been distracted away from the breath. Second, practice letting go. By letting go, we mean not getting agitated and pushing it away, or not getting excited and wrapped up in it. Simply not giving it any attention or energy, allowing it to be, to go on its way. And then, after letting go, return to the breath. However many times you get distracted, acknowledge, let go, and return over and over This is the practice. You are training your mind to stay with the breath. The breath is home. It's always there, whether you're paying attention or not. And if you pay attention and follow the breath, it can take you all the way to awakening. Every once in a while, check in with the state of your mind. Is your mind becoming more calm and peaceful or not? If it is, you might begin to notice more subtle, refined characteristics of the breath. You might begin to see anicca in the breath, impermanence and instability. Sometimes the breath is deep and long, sometimes short and shallow. Try to observe these more refined and subtle aspects of the breath. See it changing. Slowly start to open your eyes. Become aware of the external, the room around you. The computer and the live stream, your friends in the chats. And check in with your mind. What has changed in your mind from the beginning to the end of this meditation? See if you can compare the two states and what's different. Okay, friends. So who's left? Who's still in the chat? We lost a few people, but it's funny. We gained like 3-4 people during the guided meditation. Then they left. People logged in and like, oh, why is he closing his eyes and not doing anything? This is a boring stream. We're gonna go. Hello, Hubertus. Good morning in Indonesia. Hello, Ted. Oh, right now it's 9:46 p.m. I'm on East Coast, USA. All right. So let's do some reading. Let's see, where were we? We were SN 219. Here we go. With Uttara at Rajagaha, standing to one side, the god Uttara recited these verses in the Buddha's presence. This life, so very short, is led onward. There's no shelter for one led on by old age. Seeing this peril of death, do good deeds that bring happiness. We're back to one of my favorite things. This is the Buddha mic drop moment, right? This is like, I always joke that these are like rap battles, right? And so here comes the god, let's see, is it Deva? So it's a Deva, not a Brahma. So a Deva comes down and says this wonderful verse, and the Buddha responds and drops the mic. This life, so very short, is led onwards. There's no shelter for one led on by old age. Seeing this peril of death, a seeker of peace would drop the world's bait. Mic drop. Right? Now that is the way to be. That is it. Like that's the Buddha just is like straight to the heart on that one. A seeker of peace would drop the world's bait. Number 20, with Anathapindika. Standing to one side, the god Anathapindika. So this is Anathapindika after he has died, right? He was either a once returner or a non-returner. I'm not 100% sure. So he is a Deva, right? And so Anathapindika recites words in the Buddha's presence. This is indeed that Jeta's grove, frequented by the Sangha of hermits, where the king of Dhamma stayed. It brings me joy. Deeds, knowledge and principle, ethical conduct and excellent livelihood, By these are mortals purified, not by clan or by wealth. That's why an astute person, seeing what's good for themselves, would examine the teaching rationally and thus be purified in it. Sariputta has true wisdom, ethics, and also peace. Any mendicant who has gone beyond can at best equal him. This is what the god Anathapindika said. Then he bowed down and respectfully circled the Buddha, keeping him on his right side, before vanishing right there. Then, when the night had passed, and the Buddha addressed the mendicants, tonight a certain glorious god, lighting up the entire Jeta's grove, came to me, bowed, stood to one side, and recited these verses in my presence. The Buddha then repeated the verse in full. When he said this, Venerable Ananda said to the Buddha, Sir, that Deva must surely have been Anathapindika, for the householder Anathapindika was devoted to Venerable Sariputta. Good, Ananda, you've reached the logical conclusion as far as logic goes, for that indeed was the Deva Anathapindika. Yes, it was. It was the Anathapindika. For sure. All right. With Shiva. 21. So I have heard at one time the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. Then, late at night, the glorious god Shiva, lighting up the entire Jeta's Grove, went up to the Buddha, bowed, stood to one side, and recited these verses in the Buddha's presence. Associate only with the virtuous. Try to get close to the virtuous. Understanding the true teaching of good. Things get better, not worse. Associate only with the virtuous. Try to get close to the virtuous. Understanding the true teaching of God, of good. Wisdom is gained, but not from anyone else. Associate only with the virtuous. Try to get close to the virtuous. Understanding the true teaching of good. You grieve not among the grieving. Associate only with the virtuous. Try to get close to the virtuous. Understanding the true teaching of the good, you shine among your relatives. Associate only with the virtuous. Try to get close to the virtuous. Understanding the true teaching of the good, sentient beings go to a good place. Associate only with the virtuous. Try to get close to the virtuous. Understanding the true teaching of the good, sentient beings live happily. Then the Buddha replied to Shiva in verse. Associate only with the virtuous. Try to get close to the virtuous. Understanding the true teaching of the good, you're released from all suffering. Sadhu, sadhu. Very good. Whoa, it's Shiva. Yeah, it's Shiva. Exactly. Number 22, with Kema. Standing to one side, the god Kema recited these verses in the Buddha's presence. Witless fools behave like their own worst enemies, doing wicked deeds that ripen as bitter fruit. It's not good to do a deed that plagues you later on, for which you weep and wail, as its effect stays with you. It is good to do a deed that doesn't plague you later on, that comforts and cheers, as its effect stays with you. As a precaution, you should do what you know is for your own welfare. A thinker, a wise one, would not proceed thinking like the cart driver. Suppose the cart driver leaves the highway, so even and well compacted, they enter upon a rough road. and fret when their axle breaks. So too an idiot departs the good to follow what's against the good. Fallen in the jaws of death, they fret like their axles broken. Ted asks, but what use is it for the Dhamma to be only for the virtuous? I wouldn't say the Dhamma is only for the virtuous, but those that understand the Dhamma, right? If you don't see a point in virtue and skillful living, then the Dhamma would not appeal. Why would I do this? All right, so we come to the end, friends. Let's do our sharing of merits. Dukkha patta chane dukkha, bhaya patta chane bhaya, soka patta chane soka, hontu sabbe pipaniyo, ettavata cha mehi sampatang punya sampatang, sabbe deva anumodantu, sabba sampatti settiya, akasatta chabumatta devanaga mahiddika, punyang tang anumoditva, charang rakantu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share in this merit that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share in this dispensation of ours, share in this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddhist dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, friends. So we come to the end of another Dhammapalooza. And I'd like to just do some housekeeping things. So at least for the next couple of weeks, I'll still be doing morning monastery experience, which is at 8 a.m. Eastern time. Saturday through Tuesday right now is my schedule. And we do about a half hour of precepts, chanting, and a little Dhamma talk, a little thought of the day. So it's a good thing to start your day with, having the experience you would if you were staying at a monastery. And then also, there's every Monday at the same time, Dhammapalooza. So come join us every Monday. If you'd like to, you can subscribe to my channel, click the bell, do all that jazz. You can look at all the videos. I have years and years of videos on this channel. And, if you click the bell, subscribe, and do all that, then you get an email when I go live or when something is scheduled. So friends, until next time, Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy. Practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful week.